Hi, I'm John Aiello. I'm a librarian at Pearl River Public Library, and I'm coming to you today with PRPL From Home Services and another episode of Reset with Poetry. In our last episode, we read the poem Moon Fishing by Liesl Mueller. Great poem that's also sort of a fairy tale she makes up. Today we're going to be reading sonnet number 2 from Shakespeare, and just a little bit about sonnets in general and this piece. So, sonnets obviously are a really old form. They're not only one form, there's at least 2 different forms that I can think of sonnets in terms of their rhyme scheme. They're all 14 lines long. The type Shakespeare uses ends with a rhyming couplet, so the last 2 lines rhyme together, as do all of the last lines of the end of each one of the acts of all of his plays. He always ends with a rhyming couplet. Speaking of his plays, hidden in plain sight is a sonnet in Romeo and Juliet. In the balcony scene, he's worked a sonnet right into that scene itself. So when I first started looking at the sonnets, probably like about 30 years ago or so, I assumed that they were all love poems, and many of them are, but many of them aren't. A number of them are actually about the same thing, and that thing is Shakespeare's great fear of growing older and dying. But he uses the poems to not only confront his fear of getting older and dying, but to suggest that we can transcend old age and death through children. So this is sonnet number 2, and maybe I'll paraphrase it first because this English is hundreds of years old, and it's not always immediately apparent what's going on in these poems. So he starts out by saying, when you're 40 and the weather has really done a job on your face and you're not looking so great anymore, and all of the vigor of your youth seems to be gone, where will all your beauty have gone? Where is it now? Many of his poems actually ask questions. So there are really 2 people in this poem. There's the person asking the question, and there's a person whose the questions are being asked of. It may be the poet himself. So when you're asked, where did all your beauty go, how great would it to be able to say, my beauty isn't gone. My beauty has moved from me into my child. And even though I'm old and I look old, when I look at my child, I see myself renewed and alive and vigorous again in the world. So, sonnet number 2. When 40 winters shall besiege thy brow and dig deep trenches in thy beauty's field, thy youth's proud livery so gazed on now will be a tattered weed of small worth held. Then being asked where all thy beauty lies, where all the treasure of thy lusty days, to say within thine own deep sunken eyes were an all-eating shame and thriftless praise. How much more praise deserved thy beauty's use if thou couldst answer, this fair child of mine shall sum my count and make my old excuse, proving his beauty by succession thine. This were to be new made when thou art old, and to see thy blood warm when thou feelst it cold. Sonnet number 2 by Shakespeare. Thanks for being here on Reset with Poetry, and I hope to see you in our next episode.